Let's get your day started. This is ABC Action News, taking action for you.
Hello, good morning, Tampa Bay. Right now, we, of course, are tracking what is now Hurricane Idalia. The National Weather Service upgraded it from a tropical storm just an hour ago. Good morning, everybody, with you every step of the way. I'm James Tully.
And good morning. I'm Dee O'Reilly, not going anywhere. Our crews are spread out across the Bay Area, and we are now just hours away from the impacts of the storm reaching the Bay Area. Let's get right over to Greg D. He's got the latest track from the National Hurricane Center. Greg, any surprises at all?
No, and that's really, I think, a good thing, Dee. I think we don't want any surprises with this. That would be the best case scenario now. We're not at the point where something's going to happen, we're going to miss this storm, okay? We're getting something from Idalia. That's now set. And I don't think there are going to be huge track changes over the next 24 hours. Moving north at 14, 75-mile-an-hour storm. The hurricane hunters will be flying into this continuously. And as the storm later this afternoon gets closer to Florida, we'll also start getting radar data, which is really good for catching wind speeds. So expect more frequent updates. The Hurricane Center is no longer going to wait to update the intensity every 6 hours. When they get the new information, they're going to put in the new stats. So expect things to kind of change throughout the afternoon as the Hurricane Hunter aircraft are in and out of this storm. 75 mile an hour expected to grow to 120 by 2 o'clock in the morning overnight. So that's Wednesday morning. And then the forecast calls it for to continue to strengthen past 120 up until the point of landfall, which likely will happen 9, 10 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, maybe around Franklin or Dixie County. That is actually, if you're paying attention, that is a little farther west than we were yesterday when we were at Cedar Key and Levy County. So we've gone about 30, 35 miles to the west with the track. That is an improvement. It also decreases the angle at which Idalia hits the coast. The more north it's moving when it makes landfall, instead of more east, I think more of the water gets pushed north versus towards our coast. We're still going to get a water rise here, okay? That's going to happen. We're not at the point where the surge is just not going to happen at all, but maybe we'll kind of take the edge off of the top levels. I'm posting these graphics. There are video updates on my social media throughout the morning. If you've got questions, concerns, check me out on Facebook. That's probably the best way to reach out, facebook.com/GregDWeather or @GregDWeather on Instagram. That's where I'm putting little 90-second reel updates. You can message me there as well if you're concerned about the storm. Take a look at the winds now. Nothing too bad. 5 miles an hour, that's it. And the winds really much of the day today are not going to be an issue with this system. Even in the afternoon, this is 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it'll start to get pretty rough out over the Gulf of Mexico. But over the state, 20-mile-an-hour winds, breezy. I think you'll notice the wind for sure. But last-minute preps, things to get done around your property, your house, trying to maybe move to a safer location, the weather is not really going to be a big issue. In fact, if there's one thing that I think I'm really looking to for this afternoon is the heat. It could get really hot later today. Had some showers and thunderstorms earlier. Those are now gone. Temperatures currently upper 70s to the low 80s. It feels like the 90s, a couple of scattered clouds. So today's still a perfectly fine day to get things done. A lot of you are off. Schools are closed. There's going to be a lot of hustle and bustle around town. Temperatures will be in the 90s. Rain chances build towards the late evening. And as these rains start to move in, these are going to be where the wind is, and there could be some severe weather too. I do expect a tornado watch box for our state later on today. More on the storms, the wind forecast hour by hour. I'm going to take you through the whole thing as we break down Idalia coming up in the next update. Dia.
All right, thank you so much, Greg. 3 minutes after 6 now. With the effects of Hurricane Idalia expected to reach the southern portions of the Tampa Bay area as soon as this afternoon, local officials have issued mandatory and voluntary evacuations for some residents. I want to run through these for you right now. Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco, Citrus, Sarasota, and Manatee counties all issued evacuation orders for Zone A. Those areas are the most likely to be affected by storm surge. If you live in an area that floods during heavy rainfall, or you live in a manufactured or mobile home or RV, you must evacuate. Manatee County issued a voluntary evacuation for people living in Zone B. Meanwhile, Pasco County ordered a voluntary evacuation for people in Zones B and C.
And local transit agencies helping you get to your nearest evacuation shelter. The Hillsborough Area Regional Transit, or HART, and the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority, or PSTA, and Go Pasco all making their routes fare-free today. Manatee County Area Transit, or MCAT, eliminated fares for its riders last fall. Just remember, bus services will be suspended later this afternoon. HART is stopping service at 5 p.m., so if you need to use a bus service to evacuate, do it this morning. But in just about an hour from now, St. Pete Fire Rescue is going to begin busing people to shelters if they need help getting there.
And that's where we begin our coverage this morning, this hour, with ABC Action News reporter Heather Lee. She's live near the St. Pete Pier. And Heather, that's an area that's seen flooding in past storms.
Yes, good morning to you, Dia. Good morning, James. We are near the pier. We're also near the Vinoy Hotel, which is right over here across the road here. And Vinoy Hotel in 2019, you may recall, actually flooded. The parking garage flooded. That was just because of a heavy rainstorm. That wasn't even a hurricane or a tropical storm. It was a heavy rainstorm that moved through the area and caused flooding in that parking garage. A lot of folks at the time were questioning whether the stormwater system was able to keep up with that situation. And then fast forward to 2020, we had Ida. Now, Ida started out as a hurricane, but by the time it hit us, it was just a tropical storm. And you may recall a lot of folks in the area, in the Tampa Bay area, said, it's just a tropical storm. I think we'll be fine. But we saw some really major flooding in our area, in Hillsborough County, as well as in Pinellas County. Over in Shore Acres in St. Petersburg, which is just north of where we are, that's an area that floods quite frequently from heavy rainstorms. So, of course, when Ada came through, they saw some pretty significant flooding. I do believe at the time there was a storm surge because of the high tide during that time. But either way, they saw some rising water in that neighborhood, and that threw a lot of neighbors off course. I remember a lot of folks out there were really surprised by that flooding, and it was because you saw the canals filling up, and there's a lot of canals that run through that neighborhood. And so a lot of those houses ended up getting flooded. And so, again, it was just a shock for a lot of folks. And that, at the time, was only 3 to 4 feet of storm surge. We're anticipating potentially 7 feet in this situation during this hurricane. So it is something to absolutely take seriously. And this is an area, again, where we have seen flooding during, again, whether it's a typical rainstorm or a tropical storm or even a hurricane. It is, again, why a lot of folks over at St. Pete at Tropicana Field, they're going to be busing and any type of special needs or folks who just don't have transportation to a shelter today. That's going to be happening at 7 this morning. And at St. Pete Fire Rescue, they're going to be using buses from the Pinellas County School District to do that. So it's just a team effort for them to get folks, again, who don't have transportation or have special needs to a shelter this morning and this afternoon ahead of the storm. So that's something that we're going to be following. Again, we're in the downtown area near the pier, but we're going to be heading over to the Tropicana Field in about 20 minutes or so to see about those buses, if they've arrived, and again, if they're going to get started on transporting those folks over to a shelter. And we may even be able to get on a bus. We're going to wait and see what the situation, how the situation unfolds. But for now, we're live near the St. Pete Pier. Heather Lee, ABC Action News.
All right, thank you so much, Heather. And we are continuing our team coverage now in Hillsborough County. Want to take a closer look at preparations and also evacuations.
We've got ABC Action News reporter Larissa Scott live from Apollo Beach this morning with the latest update from emergency management crews there, with storm surge, as Greg continues to say, being the biggest concern here. Good morning, Larissa.
Hi, good morning, James and Dia. Well, this area here in Apollo Beach is under a mandatory evacuation order, as well as anyone else living in Zone A in Hillsborough County. Now, that also includes mobile home parks and anyone living in low-lying areas. There's also a river flood warning in Hillsborough County that's expected to go into effect later this morning through tonight. Officials are encouraging everyone to make last-minute preparations now and heed evacuation orders if you live in an area with one. The past 2 days, people have been getting sandbags for their homes, filling up their cars with gas, buying supplies, and making other necessary preparations.
I mean, you just never know. Anytime that storm is coming our way, we always have to be prepared. Always have to just, hope for the best and pray for the best, and just don't know what to expect.
And if you need help figuring out your evacuation zone or where you can find the nearest shelter to you, make sure you head to our website, abcactionnews.com. I'm live in Apollo Beach this morning. Larissa Scott, ABC Action News.
Thank you, Larissa. Tampa City leaders will provide an update on their preparation efforts ahead of Idalia. Mayor Jane Castor and Tampa's police chief and fire chief will speak around 11:30 this morning. And there's going to be a second briefing later this evening at 5:30. Be sure to stay with us on air and also on abcactionnews.com. We'll have all the information that you need to know after those news conferences.
Getting out of Hurricane Idalia's way. Coming up, the closure deadlines you need to beat if you plan to catch a flight from 3 international airports here in our area.
Type 2 diabetes?
Discover the Ozempic Trizone. In my Ozempic Trizone, I lowered my A1C, CV risk, and lost some weight.
In studies, the majority of people reached an A1C under 7 and maintained it. Ozempic lowers the risk of major cardiovascular events, such as stroke, heart attack, or death, in adults also with known heart disease. And you may lose weight. Adults lost up to 14 pounds. Ozempic isn't for people with type 1 diabetes. Don't share needles or pens or reuse needles. Don't take Ozempic if you or your family ever had medullary thyroid cancer or have multiple endocrineoplasia syndrome type 2 or if allergic to it. Stop Ozempic and get medical help right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, or an allergic reaction. Serious side effects may include pancreatitis. Gallbladder problems may occur. Tell your provider about vision problems or changes. Taking Ozempic with the sulfonylurea or insulin may increase low blood sugar risk. Side effects like nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea may lead to dehydration, which may worsen kidney problems.
Join the millions already taking Ozempic. Ask your healthcare provider about the Ozempic Trizone.
Okay, welcome back. This morning, of course, we're tracking Hurricane Idalia to keep you and your family safe. Right now in the free ABC Action News mobile app, you're going to find the nearest sandbag locations to your home.
And also, we want to make sure that you're aware of any evacuation orders. We want to make sure that you know about the shelters that are opening up in case you're ordered to leave. Want to get the latest now from Greg D, tracking Hurricane Idalia and the impacts that we're expected to see. Greg, you've been talking about, of course, the wind and the rain, but it's the storm surge that you tell us that you're most concerned about with this storm.
Yeah, and I want to kind of remind folks not to read too much into any kind of wobbles in the track over the next several hours as we watch the storm. The safest and most reasonable decision to make is that if you're in an evacuation zone and you're asked to leave, you should just leave. Don't risk it. It's just not worth the stress. I mean, what else are you going to do today? Everything is closed. Nothing's going to be open. Things are shutting down. Go to your safe place. We'll watch the storm go by. Best case scenario, we get some scattered power outages. We're going to get some wind, but hopefully not too much water. And that would certainly be good news. Now, the storm is strengthening. This is looking like a much healthier storm, hurricane now compared to where we were yesterday. This is called a central dense overcast. I've kind of put some texture on this satellite to help me pick out where some of the strongest convection is, and it's right near the center. Definitely seems to see more of it on the east side. And remember, we're going to be on the east side, the stronger side of the storm. So that's where the stronger winds and the heavy rains are. Going to keep showing you the track. There are going to be updates throughout the morning, but I don't think there are going to be huge swings in this. We're now in basically Franklin-Dixie County territory here, if you know your Big Bend counties, between Tallahassee and over towards Crystal River, maybe that Perry area just north of Cedar Keys. So Cedar Keys is going to get hit pretty hard here. Now, the coast here, much like it is across the Nature Coast, a large estuary area of mangroves and kind of wetlands. So you really have to go far inland before you find some communities that obviously not as densely populated as our Bay Area counties are down through the south. So this coast can take some surge, but obviously anyone that lives within those wet areas needs to get out of there quickly. And of course, Citrus County, I think you're going to get some significant water movement no matter where this track shifts across the Nature Coast. Hurricane warnings haven't changed either. I don't actually expect hurricane conditions for most of us. It's these surge warnings that really kind of have our attention, because it's been a long time since we've had such a strong hurricane making landfall on this trajectory to the north of the Bay Area while it's turning to the north and east, pushing the Gulf towards the east. You really have to go back to the 1960s, Gladys, when it made landfall near Hernando County, a Category 2 storm, that you've really seen anything of this intensity in this area. And of course, the 1921 hurricane that hit Tarpon Springs, that one is one that will make our history books for forever. 8 to 12 feet of surge, Citrus County north. maybe some isolated higher areas, but even down into Pasco and Hernando County, 6 to 9 feet. And then the way the bay fills up really has us concerned as well, as a lot of this water is going to get pushed towards the bay. It is going to happen during some high tides, but not sure if the timing here is perfect to maximize the surge, because some of the strongest winds will be towards sunrise tomorrow. Our highest tide is tomorrow mid-afternoon. By then, the storm will start to wind down. The one high tide where we are concerned about is the one that comes in overnight. 3 o'clock in the morning, Crystal River, just before 3 a.m. at Bayport, Ballast Point, 3:02 a.m., Sarasota just before 2 a.m., and in St. Pete, that's the latest, at 3:31. That's the one that could see some coastal flooding. This high tide, this overnight one, is about half, a little less than half, of what the afternoon tide will be. So we're getting it at high tide. We're going to get some strong winds, but not at the highest tide possible of the day. So maybe the timing here is going to help us out. The wind today during the day, if you are concerned about moving about, I think it's going to be fine. I don't think today's going to be a dangerous day to be outside. If you've got the day off, you want to just get out there and maybe kind of clean up around the house, or you want to go out for a walk in the afternoon, that's fine. Temperatures are going to be hot. It's going to be really warm this afternoon. It's going to be really humid. But the winds, they'll be gusty, 20 to 30 miles an hour. This isn't dangerous. It's just going to be breezy. You'll notice the wind throughout the day. As you're heading to bed this evening, that's when I think you'll really start to pick up the winds. They'll start at the Sun Coast and move north. I love how Futurecast, this is our in-house model, it updated like this after 5 a.m. I mean, the data couldn't have come in at a better time, because this latest run, I think, is really very well showing the intensity of the winds in our area overnight. So this is 4 a.m. on Wednesday, and you see a lot of 40s, some 30s. There'll probably be some gusts into the 50s. But as far as sustained hurricane force winds, there's the eye right there, by the way. They're out here in the Gulf of Mexico. On this track, and you see it going here into the Big Bend, all of the hurricane force winds stay west of our area. This now, early around sunrise Wednesday morning, there's the eye of the storm. This, the dark gray, you see that right there? This is your Category 3 destructive winds. They're not here. Not in the Bay Area, not in Citrus County, not in Hernando, not anywhere. There could be gusts in our area above 70, but I don't think we'll see triple-digit wind gusts anywhere. I think it's going to be hard to find a wind gust to 80 miles an hour, even 70. On this track, I'm doubtful that we'll see gusts to 70. Probably a lot of 50 and 60 mile an hour wind gusts is the way this is working out right now on this current track. Remember, wobbles happen, so we'll have to watch that part of it. But I think for most of us, this is going to be a low to mid-grade tropical storm, except Hernando, Citrus County, coastal Pasco, and Pinellas, maybe a bit of a stronger mid-grade to a little stronger tropical storm with obviously minor power outages. Remember, for those of you in Citrus and Hernando County, you really didn't get the winds from Ian. You really didn't get the winds from Irma up there. So the tree cover here is probably pretty dense. We've got a lot of branches that could easily fall, and that's going to be the concern. A branch on a house, on a car, on a power line, those kinds of disruptions across a road. That's another reason why you want to be in a safe place during this storm. Yeah, you might not get the surge, but just be aware that if trees fall around you, roads are blocked, it's going to be harder to get to you, and it's going to be harder for you to get out. So getting to a safe place where you know you're going to be okay for about 24 to 36 hours, that's the way to go. By Wednesday evening and Thursday morning, the storm is basically done. All this information on my Facebook page. I'll be posting some of these graphics throughout the morning. Check out my Instagram reels and stories. There'll be information there as well as we go throughout the day. Here's the radar right now. We haven't really seen much going on the radar. There have been some showers and storms overnight. There were some showers around Crystal River. I want to take you to the radar here, to Crystal River, and you see the problem with Crystal River is that it is built onto this estuary, basically. You are the river here, the water, the canals all feed into the city. So as the Gulf of Mexico heads in your direction, it is basically going to head right into town. And as you look at the map of the town, the water is all over the place. So I expect the water, if the surge materializes like some of these forecasts are calling for, to get well past 19. So if you're anywhere in Crystal River, this is the only place where I think the flooding is going to be really, really significant and could really reach a high level. As far as the afternoon goes, 90s Rain developing during the second half of the day, and it's in that rain that you'll start to see some of the heaviest wind gusts. If we get a lot of sunshine today with the southeast wind, no sea breeze, you could see some upper 90s in a couple of communities. Futurecast certainly suggesting that in a couple of towns. I'm not buying some of the 98, 99 numbers you'll see it put out, but it could be close. Mainly dry midday, mainly dry during the afternoon. So 3 o'clock in the afternoon, here's a rain band moving through. Any of these outer ones, these are the ones we need to watch for severe weather. Remember when Ian, there was a tornado in Fort Lauderdale well before the storm approached? It was one of these rain bands. So likely going to see a tornado watch box for the state. That's on par with what you'd expect. That would not be a surprise. That's kind of what you get with hurricanes, isolated tornadoes. Typically, they're small EF0 tornadoes, but they could produce isolated damage for sure. That first initial rain band moves by. We may get a break this evening, breezy, temperatures in the 70s and 80s. And it's after 8 o'clock that the brunt of the storm starts to move in. Now you start to see solid bands of rain. Everywhere you see red and orange, that's when the winds are gusting into tropical storm strength. This is 11:30 at night. Tampa could still be dry. After midnight is when the worst of it is. And fortunately, it's while we're sleeping, you're going to feel that you're going to hear the wind howling, those wind gusts, 40 to 50 miles an hour, heavy rain. But because we're on the east side of the storm, the wind here is going to be feeding into the center. So we'll have to watch how much of this wind is actually onshore. The wind may be helping us a little bit if this stays farther to the west. And you see here east of 75, Haines City, Avon Park. I'm getting messages from folks in Highlands County asking, well, you're not talking about us. I actually don't have a lot to say about you, Highlands County. That's good news. You really got hit hard by Ian. That's the same for Hardee and DeSoto County. You are not going to get anywhere near what Ian brought to you last year at this time. We're about 11 months ago. You're going to get some gust over 40 miles an hour, but I don't think you're going to get a very strong storm here. And then you'll see the rain bands continuing into Wednesday morning. So through 8 o'clock is the worst of it. By midday, still raining, but the winds are going to be done. And then by the afternoon, we'll really start to dry out. Scattered storms Thursday into Friday as well. Then as you head into the weekend, it's a holiday weekend. Most of you have Monday off, and it looks to be a good one too. Drier than you typically see it, so we'll have some time to clean up with temperatures, as you'd expect, in the 90s. James?
Thank you, Greg. School buses will not be running in many Tampa Bay area counties today, but coming up, the local district and universities closing due to the oncoming hurricane.
And getting prepared for the storm, you still have time to stock your hurricane kit. We'll run down some of the important items that you want to go out and buy this morning before we see the impacts of the storm in our area.
Here's a look at your Tampa Bay area drive times.
At Farrah & Farrah, we do big things. We don't shy away from tough fights, and we've proven we can win big cases. Caring, understanding, and hard work is how you win. Farrah & Farrah, here for you, here for good.
Well, many counties are now using schools to shelter people who need to evacuate from Hurricane Idalia. Because of that, and for the safety of students and staff, local districts canceled classes. All Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco, Manatee, Hernando, Hardee, Citrus, and Sarasota County public schools are closed today and tomorrow. This includes any extracurricular activities. USF, the University of Tampa, Eckerd College, and St. Leo University also will be closed today and tomorrow. We have a full list of all the schools impacted on the front page of our website.
As this storm moves closer to the Bay Area, we want to remind you that it's not too late to put your hurricane kit together for your family, just in case you might need it. You still have time to run out and buy some supplies. So you'll want to make sure that your kit includes a first aid kit, flashlights, and batteries. Also, make sure you have a supply of non-perishable foods for both you and your family and your pets to last several days. You'll also need 1 gallon of water per person per day. Also, battery-powered fans, just in case you lose power, a battery-powered radio, and a generator would all come in handy as well. Most of those items are sales tax free right now. So stay with us. We'll have more as we track Hurricane Idalia throughout the morning when we come back.
Good morning, Tampa Bay. Let's get Get your day started. This is ABC Action News, taking action for you.
Good morning. We are continuing to track Hurricane Idalia for you this morning. We're going to break down what each evacuation zone means and how to know if you need to leave. Thanks so much for waking up with us. We are here with you throughout the storm. I'm Dia Ryland.
Yes, we are. I'm James Tully. We're live in Pasco County as well, looking into storm preps there when shelters open this morning. Our focus is on the coast for a good reason as we bring in Greg D now for another look at this storm. Idalia's path hasn't changed much overnight. The concerns, they remain the same. We're going to see some effects from this for sure.
Yeah, generally, I don't think there have been any surprises overnight if you're just waking up. It is a hurricane now. It became so at 5 a.m. As the Hurricane Hunter aircraft were flying in there. A little behind schedule. We actually were thinking it would happen yesterday, but the storm is certainly showing signs of trying to intensify. By the way, when you look at the model intensity data and what the models are actually forecasting for the storm, overall, the average actually keeps it a strong Cat 2 or maybe even a middle-of-the-road Cat 2. So there's still that possibility that may not reach Cat 3 status. But just looking at the environment out ahead of it, I think the Hurricane Center is expecting that this thing could go through one of those rapid strengthening cycles somewhere between the Keys and landfall in the Big Bend. 75 miles an hour north at 14. We got some rain and thunderstorms well out ahead of it. You see that flare-up right there. So the rain here is going to come at us later in the day. And then the actual storm rain starts later in the evening. The track has maybe ever so slightly shifted back toward the west. That is going to bring in the storm maybe somewhere near the Franklin-Dixie County line. Hurricane warnings now back through Apalachicola, down through the Bay Area. That part hasn't changed. Still expecting a Cat 3 that'll be strengthening. And by the way, when you look at the storm, for our friends down the coast, the East Coast is under tropical storm warnings for Jacksonville. And look at these tropical storm watches for the Carolina coast. They could get a 2 to 4 foot surge from Brunswick all the way up into Charleston. So this is a storm that's going to not just impact us, but really all the way up the East Coast. No changes to the hurricane and tropical storm warnings. No changes to the surge warnings. Those remain along the coast as well. As far as looking out there this morning, we're looking at mainly partly cloudy skies. Temperatures this morning are generally in the 80s. 93 degrees is what it feels like over at TPA. We saw some storms overnight. Those are now gone. So I think much of the day today, it's going to be hot and dry. And we'll probably see a good deal of sunshine with those temperatures climbing back up into the 90s. It's going to be hot before the storm arrives. Lots of hourly breakdowns ahead coming up throughout the rest of the show. Dia?
All right, thank you so much, Greg. There are a lot of closures, a lot of them that you have to keep up to date with. So we want to help you as we track Hurricane Idalia. 2 of our local airports are closing ahead of the storm's landfall. I want to go over to Jazz Williams now. She's got the latest on both those airports and also the roads that are closing.
Yeah, good morning, Dia. You know, we do know that as of 12:01 a.m. this morning, all commercial flights to and from Tampa International have been suspended. But beginning at 7 a.m., the airport will also be closed to all. That means even private and cargo flights. And that'll be until it can assess any damages later on in the week. Now, according to a statement from TPA, they do anticipate reopening on Thursday. And that's, you know, after any damage assessments. But for now, anyone who previously had plans to travel by plane, you'll simply just not be able to do so for the time being. Also in St. Pete and Clearwater, that airport will be closing today beginning at 3 p.m. Sarasota and Bradenton International Airport, they say they're going to remain open, but will closely monitor Idalia. And of course, we'll be bringing you all of the information as we get it. In the meantime, though, if you want more information about your evacuation routes, be sure to check our website, abcactionnews.com. James, Dia, back to you.
Jess, thank you so much. Continuing to track Idalia, of course, our reporters in locations across the Bay Area to help you prepare for the storm.
I want to check in now with Pasco County. That's where we find ABC Action News reporter Keely McCormick this morning. She's live at the Emergency Operations Center in Newport Richey. Keely, what are you hearing about what people in Pasco County need to know?
Well, James, Dia, good morning. First and foremost, they should stay calm. Pasco County officials are urging people to have a plan in place and listen to their warnings. Let's start with the current mandatory evacuations, meaning you need to leave if you live in any of the areas on your screen now. That applies to people in Evac Zone A, anyone living in a manufactured home, mobile home, or RV, no matter the location. People in low-lying areas or flood-prone locations. Again, if you fall in any of those categories, you do need to evacuate. And if you're unsure, we have a tool to help you look up which zone you live in on the homepage of abcactionnews.com. There are also voluntary evacuations in effect for evac zones B and C, for people registered with the county as a special needs resident, and for anyone who would be vulnerable if the power goes out. If that applies to you, it's not required that you evacuate. But it is crucial to know your evac zone. You can check that again on our website. For many people across the Bay Area and right here in Newport Richey, this will be their first big storm. That's why Newport Richey officials are stressing the importance of having a plan in place. Part of that plan includes knowing where to go if you need to evacuate. For those of you who don't have a place to go, the county's opening several shelters across Pasco County. And those shelters will open up this morning at 8 o'clock, and we have a full list and location of those shelters on our website for you. That's at abcactionnews.com. Reporting live in Newport Richey, Keely McCormick, ABC Action News.
Thank you, Keely. Coming up, knowing whether it's safe to stay home or evacuate as we break down the most vulnerable areas in the evacuation zone letter that they fall under. Taking a look outside this morning, just saying what Greg has been telling us all morning long. It's going to be a really nice day. You're going to have a lot of time to get some more prep done here as we come back on Good Morning Tampa Bay, tracking Idalia. Okay, welcome back to Good Morning Tampa Bay. Of course, we're tracking Idalia this morning. Now, Hurricane Idalia, it doesn't really matter where you live. If you're watching us right now, there's a high chance you could be told to evacuate.
This depends on which evacuation zone you live in. Now, this is different from your flood zone, which is used for your property insurance. So we want to go through this with you right now. Take a look at this map. These are the evacuation zones for Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Manatee counties along the bay. We know there are lots of colors here, but don't pay attention to that right now. The important thing to know is which letter zone you live in. These go from Zone A, which is considered the most vulnerable areas and the first order to evacuate, down to Zone E, which is less likely to be evacuated.
And here's a look at the evacuation zone map for Pasco County. For example, right now, anybody in Zone A must evacuate. That would be the red that you're seeing there. It is recommended people living in Zones B and C evacuate as well, but it is not mandatory. You can see the full list of mandatory and voluntary evacuations, as well as being able to look up your zone on abcactionnews.com. It's a rather easy site to navigate, Greg. I know you spent a lot of time on there. You type in your address, it'll zoom in, it'll show you exactly where you are and what your status is.
Yeah, very important, and we'll get to those specific surge forecasts coming up. I think, the best way to approach this is, of all the parts of the storm that we're confident about, I would say the track is actually at the top right now. This is not Ian. Remember with Ian, just 2-3 days before, it was out towards Pensacola. I mean, the cone was swinging around all over the place. Literally did the windshield wiper effect all over the map. It was hard to keep up. With Idalia, when you look at the performance of the European, for instance, our favorite model, it had the storm in the Big Bend 5 days ago. And every single time the model ran, it was Big Bend, day after day after day. Will there be little wobbles with this? Probably. Will there be ones that change the track now by 100 miles? No, I don't think so. I'm pretty confident that this is going to stay just to our west, far enough to the west that the worst of the weather stays out in the Gulf of Mexico, but that doesn't mean we miss the storm. We still get impacts because remember, we're on the stronger side of this one. Unlike Irma and Ian, where much of our area was on the weaker northern and western side of the storm, we're on the east side of this one. And that's where all the nasty weather is. Moving north at 14, so forward motion has really picked up with this. Yeah, the forecast track has shifted a little bit. Some of the models even push it farther west into Franklin County. Certainly, the less of an angle you get for this to move into the north and east, if it goes more north than northeast, that does improve the water situation a little bit. But is 10 miles going to make a huge difference at this point? I don't think so. I think the numbers basically stay about the same. These hurricane watches are up just in case. I don't actually think we're going to hurricane warnings. I don't think we're going to see hurricane conditions in our counties. And that includes Citrus County, all the way down to Manatee. I think we'll see tropical storm conditions, a gust over 70 70 is possible. I don't think you're going to see gusts over 90 in most of these places. Surge warnings are still up, and this is the part of the forecast that now we are less confident in its accuracy. Surge forecasting is extremely difficult. It really has to do with the shape of individual pieces of the coastline, how the winds in the storm line up at the right time, at the time of high tide, and it can vary from place to place. We just started modeling this several years ago and are still trying to really get our bearings, and especially with our coastline and how complicated it is. The shape of the bay, the cutout of the bay here, lots of little bays and estuaries along the way. These numbers are really solid, I think, in terms of a forecast, but is everyone going to get 4 to 7 feet around the bay? Hard to tell. The tide we're most concerned about is 3 o'clock in the morning. That's at Bayport, Ballast Point, Crystal River, St. Pete, 3:30, 2 a.m. on Sarasota. It's the one overnight. There's a higher tide tomorrow afternoon, but by then the storm may be out of here. So if you've made the decision to leave, that is a great decision, and you should just stick with it. You're in a safe place. Everything is closed. You've got nothing to do today. Sit in your safe place, relax, enjoy the rain, the wind. It's going to be a hot afternoon, but we're not going to see, you don't want to stay if you made the decision to leave because there's a little wobble. You definitely want to leave and get out of the way of the water. You're going to be hard to reach. Remember, the bridges are going to be closed. Some of them may be flooded out. They may be inaccessible because of the rain and the water rise. So definitely the best bet is to get to a safe place if you're in an evacuation zone. We're in the 80s now. There have been some showers here overnight, some thunderstorms up towards Dixie County this morning, heading up towards the Big Bend. Otherwise, just a couple of scattered clouds and actually breaks of sunshine to the south. So I think we're going to get into some hazy sunshine here today. Temperatures in the 70s and low 80s now. We're going to be climbing into the 90s as the afternoon goes. Still a good day to get a lot of outdoor preps done until about mid-afternoon. 3, 4 o'clock, there'll be an area of rain and thunderstorms that moves through. There may be a tornado watch associated with it. Even if there isn't, I would watch any storm today for an isolated tornado, and especially overnight. Actually, that's probably one of my bigger concerns is isolated tornadoes, because we're on that side of the storm that tends to see quite a few of them. Look at the heat today. Maybe some mid-90s, just incredibly hot. Then there's that initial band of storms. Isolated severe weather possible with this, a water spout or a tornado. Then for the majority of the evening, we may get another break. The main part of the storm starts after 8 o'clock this evening. This is where the tropical storm force winds move in. I think the worst of it probably going to be, I don't know, maybe about 2 a.m. to 8 a.m., that time frame, right in the middle of the night towards sunrise. Anytime you get under a line of rain and storms like this is where the winds are going to be gusting 40 to 60 miles an hour. And then the rain moves by and then the winds stop. And it'll be breezy, but you no longer will get very strong wind gusts. For those of you east of 75, Polk, Hardy, DeSoto, and Highlands counties, you may get half of what the coast gets here in terms of the wind, and certainly less rainfall too. There's the eye of the storm. You see our in-house model picking it up perfectly, taking it up towards the Big Bend. The hurricane conditions are going to be confined to where you see these colors around the eye. And notice that is a safe distance west of us, even in Crystal River. So I do not think that anyone along our coast, if this track holds, gets any kind of sustained hurricane conditions. Wednesday afternoon, still looking at some scattered storms, but things will improve very quickly. Freshwater flooding is possible along the coast. This is rainfall the next 48 hours. More than 4 inches possible. So neighborhoods that flood during summer thunderstorms, you could see some of the drains overwhelmed, especially during times of high tide. Slight risk of severe weather, level 2 out of 5 for isolated tornadoes. That is a threat with hurricanes as they move by. Tomorrow, some scattered afternoon storms. Friday, too, the holiday weekend looks fine. And look at the morning temperatures. We're going to have to watch those water temperatures after Idalia moves by. If they drop, we could see some cooler mornings, at least more comfortable mornings, starting this holiday weekend. Jazz.
All right. Well, Greg, good morning to you. Good morning, Tampa Bay. Let's talk about what I'm seeing right now on the roads. I haven't been able to get to this in a minute, but I am seeing 3 things that I want you to be aware of, and they're really low impact, no major roadblocks, but I want you to be aware of them anyway. It looks like we have a crash on Beers Avenue, and that's at US 41 at Nebraska Avenue. Not on our main thoroughfare in the sense of 275, but it still could be impactful if you're on your way somewhere. Looks like the notice asked to just east of that issue, we've got a lane blocked, and that's on 301 northbound. That is at St. Francis Lane, and then over toward the Newport Richey area, Elfers, it looks like we also have a crash at Catherine Street, and that's on US 19. As far as issues go, that's all I'm seeing right now. It looks like the Skyway off to a beautiful start for drivers who are out there on the roads. Again, no place really to be right now, so drivers, I would recommend just taking a chill pill, staying inside. There's really nowhere that you should have to go at this time, but if you do have anywhere to go right now, it looks like the drive times look good as well, and I'll get to that when I come back. Dia, James, I'll send it over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Jazz. 9 minutes till 7 now. Local officials say it's important that you stay informed of the latest Hurricane Idalia updates, and we want to help you do that, even if your power goes out.
Coming up, we'll go over the radio stations we're partnering with and an easy way to listen to us using your smartphone.
5 minutes till 7 now. As you're waking up with us here on Good Morning Tampa Bay, we want to remind you that you can still watch us live on your phone during the storm, even if you happen to lose power at your home. All you have to do is make sure that you download our ABC Action News mobile app. Grab your phone, open your camera, point it at your screen. This QR code is going to connect you to our free apps in the App Store and also on Google Play. And from there, you can find the live interactive radar in your neighborhood as well.
Now, if your phone dies or you lose internet or something like that, there's another option for you. If the power goes out, you can still get updates from us because we will be broadcasting our audio on our radio station partners. We partner with 6 local radio stations. They are 99.5 QYK, 98.7 The Shark, 92.5 Maxima, Q105, Wild 94.1, and Talk 1010 AM.
Well, stay with us. Good Morning Tampa Bay at 7 is up next.